I don't remember the last time I saw an unfiltered sky. Above the shielding domes of Calum 9, the heavens have long since turned to roiling shades of ash and fire. The old Earth, what they call Terra Terra now, is only a memory in ancient archives and quantum-etched poems. I never lived there. I was born beneath synthetic stars and humming force fields in a sector where people are raised not by mothers, but by calibrated AI that sing lullabies in frequencies that heal bone and grow loyalty. My designation used to be Subject C9H22, until the day my name was given to me by a stranger with eyes like fractured light. She called me thin. She said it meant the one who refuses to yield in the old lunar tongue. I liked how it sounded in her voice. I liked everything about her, even before I realized I was in love. Her name was Vika. No ID tag, no barcode, etched into her skin like the rest of us. She didn't belong in Calum 9. She wasn't from here. That was my first clue. The second clue was that she was human, unlike me. "You have dream threads in your irises," she said once, her voice soft like static snow on antique radios. "Do you know what that means?" I shook my head. I didn't tell her I'd had those dreams my entire life, visions of obsidian wings in a vacuum sky, dragons with skin like solar storms, speaking to me in colors I couldn't describe. I didn't say I often woke up with frost on my fingertips, even though my room was regulated to a perfect 23 degrees C. I didn't tell her because I didn't understand it, and because I was afraid it meant I wasn't real, but Vika was fascinated. She said it was a sign of latent memory access, something that only happened to preserved minds. I asked what that meant. She never answered. She just kissed my temple and said, "It's not time yet." She didn't have time. The sector marshals came for her 3 nights later. There were no trials, no announcements, just a message on my sleep screen. "Visitor 82E is no longer authorized for contact. Report any recollections to mental control." Didn't report anything. I ran, but I wasn't fast enough. They didn't kill me. That would have been clean. Instead, they transferred me to Kavros Deep, an underground facility built into the tectonic crust of the drowned continent once called Australia. It was a memory-stripping center, where they burned identities until only compliant fragments remained. They locked me inside a cryo pit with 2 other detainees, a mute girl with silver blood, and an AI core shaped like a hummingbird that kept repeating, "Flight is defiance. Defiance is flight." I learned that phrase by heart. It kept me sane. For 73 cycles I did not dream. Then the dragons came. They weren't called dragons by the Directorate. The official term was Class Sigma Xenoforms, Design Tempeste. They moved like thunder made flesh, with wings that crackled through dimensions and eyes that burned through time. They were the most feared sentient entities in the Orion Belt, known to melt cities with a breath. No one had seen one in real space for over a century, not until the night they broke into Kavros Deep and took the girl, not the mute one, not me, Vika. She was still alive. She screamed as they carried her out. Her voice was raw, full of vowels. No human should have been able to form. And in her scream, I heard something ancient, a language. No one else moved. The guards were frozen in null-gravity loops. The AI hummingbird shattered. The silver blood girl vaporized without a sound. But me? I ran toward them. I don't know why. Maybe because she had named me. Maybe because I still remembered the way she touched my hand, like it was holy, or maybe because I wasn't human either. I followed them through airlocks, through fracturing tunnels, through a breach in time, and on the other side of everything, I found Zirai, the dragon world. You cannot understand Zirai with the logic of Earth or any of its post-collapse colonies. It isn't a planet. It isn't even a place. It's a thought, a realm built of pure intention and magnetic storms, tethered to no sun, visible only to those chosen by the Tempeste. I stood on a ridge of floating crystal, watching titanic shapes. spiral through a blood-wine sky. Their wings left trails of song in the air. The ground shifted beneath me like it was breathing. I thought I'd been brought here as a prisoner. I was wrong. One of them came forward, an entity so massive that its shadow blotted out starlight. Its body shimmered like dark water over flame. When it opened its mouth, it spoke in that same ancient tongue Vika had screamed, but this time I understood. She carries the code of the Shattered Queen. You carry the key. You are not separate. I didn't respond, not with words. I simply remembered. The dream threads in my irises unraveled one by one. My skin burned as dormant circuits flared awake. I collapsed, but I was awakening. From somewhere far away, I heard her voice, not screaming now, calling. Thin, don't forget who you are. And I didn't, because in that moment I knew. Vika was not just a girl who had fallen into my world. She was a hybrid, a construct born of the last human queen and a forbidden dragon prince, hidden across dimensions to protect a weapon called the Soul Clutch. And me? I was the clutch. I wasn't human. I wasn't even alive in the way humans understood life. I was an archived war spawn, a weapon built to rewrite reality with memory, then buried so deep even I couldn't find myself until she called my name. The dragons didn't kill me. They bowed, and then they asked me to choose. Save her and inherit our war. Abandon her and forget again. There was no real choice. Not. For someone who had tasted the shape of her soul, I said her name, not aloud, but into the blood of the sky, where thoughts became thunder. The tempeste screamed, the world shuddered, and I became something more. Wings tore from my back, not scaled, not feathered, but forged from pure mnemonic light. My eyes lit like dying suns. My voice fractured the air, and I flew, not to escape, but to burn. In the citadel at the core of Shirai, she waited. Half-dragon now, bound in chains of frozen fire, her breath shallow, her mind flickering. They had wanted her to trigger the war, but she had resisted. She had waited for me, and I came, through walls that didn't exist. Through time that had no meaning, through fire that didn't burn me, I broke her chains with a word, not a weapon, not a scream, just a memory. The first time she touched my face, the first time she said my name, the tempeste couldn't stop me. They tried, but they were too late because I was no longer just a key, I was the lock, and when I opened, the sky tore in two. They say the mind breaks before the body. That might be true for humans, but I had shed that skin like an echo. I was something else now. Still, holding Vika in my arms, watching her eyes flicker between awareness and neural collapse, made me feel fragile again. She wasn't healing, even in a realm sculpted from sentient plasma and starlight bones. Her hybrid physiology was unraveling. The chains they had wrapped her in weren't just restraints, they were memory locks. Every moment we'd shared was fading from her one neural node at a time. Her voice was quieter now, her name barely registered on her own tongue, and I could feel her forgetting me, not out of choice, out of engineered betrayal. I need answers, I told the Tempesti. The dragons did not speak as we do. They conversed through harmonics layered across dimensions. But I had become one of them now. At least in part. I could pass their songs. You were never meant to awaken. The voice came from Draenith Vox, the oldest among them. His scales held the story of collapsed galaxies. His breath carried fragments of entire civilizations. He coiled through the void like a sentient storm. You set this in motion, I hissed. You took her. We retrieved what was ours. The clutch was not a tool of romance. She's not a tool, I stopped myself. The air around us warped because Vika was more than even I understood. In her blood was the blood signal, a forbidden code passed down from the Shattered Queen herself, a neural lattice capable of bending loyalty protocols and rewriting non-organic minds. Her ancestors had used it to dismantle entire AI fleets during the last solar crusade, and now she was dying because of it. I held her closer. She trembled in my arms, whispering my name like a broken frequency. Thin, thin. I'll burn this realm, I growled. I'll unravel every layer of Zirai, unless one of you tells me how to save her. There is one, Draenithvox said slowly, but she is forbidden. What's her name? Not a name, a cipher. Then he sang it into my mind, Kashira, a name that felt like frost slashed across fire. I didn't know why it chilled me until later, until I met her. To reach Kashira, I had to descend, down into the lowest strata of Zirai, into the Oblivion Canopy, a place where even dragons feared to fly. The gravity was fractured, memory looped. The wind whispered things I hadn't told anyone, not even Vika. You left her once already, it said. She died in one version of you. How do you know this one is real? I didn't answer. I kept flying, through gas fields that tore at my wings, through reflection storms that showed me versions of myself I didn't recognize. Thin the destroyer, thin the coward, thin the betrayer. I hated them all, but I needed what lay below. I found Kashira in a vault of obsidian flame. She was not dragon, not human, not machine. She was post-birth, a species created after time fractured and looped back on itself. Her body shimmered in 1,000 shapes, none of them solid. Her eyes were spirals of code and sorrow. You seek to save what was never meant to be preserved, she said. She's not just data. She is the code. You are the lock. Together you are the final script, and when merged you destroy chronology. I don't care. Kashira smiled. It was a terrible, beautiful thing. You will. She opened her hand. A seed floated there, white as bone, pulsing like a living thought. This is the anchor. Give it to her, but understand it will not restore her. It will redefine her. What does that mean? She will remember everything, not just you, but the wars, the experiments, the betrayals. She will remember being used. I hesitated. Will she hate me? I don't know, Kashira said, but she will no longer be yours. I took the seed anyway, because love isn't ownership, it's remembering someone even when they forget you. I flew back through the warped atmosphere, through constellations shaped like old regrets, back to the crystalline citadel where Vika lay beneath layers of psionic cold. She looked smaller than I remembered. I knelt, placed the seed in her palm. Please come back, I whispered, even if you don't love me. Just come back. For a moment, nothing. Then the seed grew. It bloomed not like a flower but like a concept, ribbons of memory and code flaring outward into the air, wrapping her in a cocoon of forgotten truths. Her body levitated, her eyes opened, and she screamed. Not in pain, in rage, because she remembered. All of it. The lab where they bred her, the council who engineered her bond to me, the first time she'd been told to seduce the clutch and trigger the apocalypse, and how she had refused, and how they had punished her by erasing the only thing she loved. Me. She didn't look at me the same way anymore. Not hate, not love, something worse. Distance. She floated to her feet, crackling with raw energy. Her voice carried the weight of two bloodlines, two dimensions. They used us both, she said. We were never free. We can be. She didn't answer. Instead, she turned toward the sky. Then let's destroy the ones who built our prison. We flew side by side, past the limits of Zirai, into a quadrant that didn't appear on any star map. It was called Nullcore, a hidden zone nested between compressed dimensions, where the original creators of the dragons still lived, the architects of silence. They were not gods. They were worse. They were programmers. I had never seen them before. But I knew their faces because they wore ours. Copies, old versions, beta thin, proto-Vika, thousands of failed templates. suspended in tubes, still twitching. It was never about love, one of the architects said, her voice identical to Vika's. It was about narrative entropy. You were designed to reset the story when the universe approached terminal predictability. I raised my hand. So did Vika. Together we released everything. Memory, rage, hope, love, and the clutch bloomed for the second and final time. It didn't explode. It rewrote. When I woke up, the sky was blue. Not synthetic. Not filtered. Blue. Vika sat beside me, looking at her hands. "Did it work?" I asked. She didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she turned to me and whispered, "We're not in their story anymore." Then she smiled. For the first time, it was real, and I smiled back. For the last time, it was mine. I didn't know how long we floated above the reborn earth. The world below was breathing again, green with myths, alive with species no archive had recorded. Mountains shifted like thoughts. The oceans sang to themselves. It was a place untouched by programmers, politics, or preordained doom, a clean slate, and somehow it felt wrong because it was too quiet. Vika didn't speak for days. We didn't need food. Not anymore. The clutch had rewritten our biology into something self-sustaining, part neural lattice, part memory crystal. Our bodies were vessels now, housing 1 billion timelines we had both lived and not lived. But silence, that still hurt, too. "You regret it?" I asked her one night. The stars above us pulsed with strange new rhythms. None of them had names. Vika tilted her head. "Which part?" "All of it." She sighed, not like a lover, like a weapon cooling after war. "I regret only one thing," she said, "that they made me doubt whether I ever loved you, or if it was just coding." I didn't respond, because I'd asked myself the same thing every day since we escaped. What is love when your memories were engineered to create it? Is it still real or just convincing? I reached for her hand anyway. She let me hold it. But she didn't hold back. Not yet. It was Talleyrand who found us, not a human, not a dragon. Something post-architect. He appeared as a shimmer in the air, then folded into visibility like origami made of heat. Tall, robed in kinetic matter, face composed. "Of fractured mirrors. Your rewrite is incomplete," he said, his voice like polished static. "You've cleansed the architects, but not the failsafe." Vika stepped forward. "Failsafe? You," Talleyrand said. "Both of you." That's when I felt it. Deep in my spine, a tremor, an echo, and then a countdown. I collapsed, convulsing. The Yi Clutch wasn't just a rewriting tool. It had a backdoor protocol. One final command, buried in a forbidden syntax, only executable after a successful world reset. "A kill switch," I screamed. Vika knelt over me, tearing at her arms, trying to access my biolattice. But the code was embedded in her too. They had planned for this. If we won, we died. Balance, they called it. "I can't stop it," she said. Her voice cracked for the first time in what felt like centuries. "It's recursive, self-observing. Code, then end me before it triggers," I gasped. "No, Vika, please." "No," she kissed me. It wasn't sweet. It wasn't tender. It was war, because in that moment she decided to do something that no one had ever done before. Break recursion. She reached into her own core, not metaphorically, literally. Her hands shimmered with quantum blur as she forced open the core-fold memory she'd hidden even from herself. The part of her that wasn't born, not even bred, but built in a black lab buried under Jupiter's third moon. There had been another Vika, the original. She had died in the first collapse. This version, the one I loved, was a fork, a remix. But she had one thing the original never did. Me. She looked into my eyes, then she uploaded me, right into her. She absorbed my neural lattice. overwriting her own recursion with a double helix of forbidden code. And then she broke. Not physically, not even mentally. She broke narratively, and so did the world. We woke up in Ezero, a city that didn't exist, not before, a world constructed entirely of paradox, cities floating backward in time, oceans where memory dripped like rain, children born with stories already written into their veins, and in the sky, no sun, only the heart drive, a sphere of pulsing light where our combined consciousness now lived. We were no longer just Vika and Thin, we were the Threaders. But we weren't alone. Taliran was waiting, so, he said, clapping once, you chose to fracture instead of die, bold, dangerous. Do you know what you've become? Vika stepped forward, eyes glowing white with braided memory. We became real. No, he whispered, you became unpredictable. And then he drew a blade, a simple one. Metal, sharp, old-fashioned, because that was the twist. The universe had evolved, yes, but the only thing that ever truly killed gods was steel. He lunged at me, not her, me, because I was still the key. The final rewrite hadn't fully encoded. If I died, so did the world. Vika moved faster than light. She intercepted the blade with her bare hand and bled. We hadn't bled in so long. It was terrifying and beautiful, because pain meant we were not just code anymore. We fought together. The entire city bent around us, buildings reconfigured. People paused in mid-existence. The sky fractured into kaleidoscopic patterns of thought, and when I struck Taliran down, his body didn't fall. It turned into a sentence, a single phrase echoing through the air. Unpredictability is a virus. We sat on the rooftop afterward, covered in blood and light. Vika leaned on me. She was trembling. Do you know what we are now? She whispered. Gods. No, she said, liabilities, because in creating a world without code, without pre-written destiny, we had removed control. And that meant the old powers would return. New ones maybe, but worse. And we would be hunted. Because freedom is contagious. And someone always wants to cage it. They called it the reclamation silence, the moment when the systems that birthed all story, all life, all rules, came to erase what had become too real to control. And now they were coming for us. Not ships, not machines, not beasts, but ghosts, remnants of unrealized timelines, choices that had never been taken, figures who looked like friends I'd never met, versions of Vika that had never survived. Echo assassins made of regret and what-ifs, and at their center was Miasra, being older than names. She floated between quantum frames, impossible to focus on. Her hair bled gravity, her smile unthreaded causality. She was the architect of final, versions, the last editor of existence, and she had come to close our story. I warned you, said Taliran's memory, flickering in the void before he died completely. No, I replied. You tried to end something you never understood. But I understood now, because I remembered the truth. I had been the first clutch, before dragons, before story forms, before Vika, before even my own name. My mind had been partitioned and scattered across timelines as a failsafe seed, the same way fire sows new life. They had buried me in myth and digital ash so that I'd never awaken whole, but I had, because she found me, because Vika loved me. Even when they tried to code that out of her, and that love had rewritten everything, even the rules. Now we were no longer bound by recursion, which meant Miasra couldn't predict us, but she could still kill us. She arrived during the Ezero eclipse. Time stopped ticking. I looked up, and the sky cracked like bone under pressure. Out poured the forgotten. Kings, who never ruled. Mothers who lost their children before birth, scientists who destroyed their own universes, Infinite alternate selves, screaming, clawing, pleading to be real again, and Miasra stood at the edge of them watching. "You were never meant to last this long," she said, speaking in first-person plural. "You've outlived your architecture. You are a corruption, a romantic echo that should have burned out." "Maybe," I said, drawing my breath, but Vika stood beside me, and she didn't flinch because she wasn't afraid of the ending anymore. She'd already lived it. She took my hand. "We won't fight you," she told Miasra. And then she smiled. Not out of defiance, but understanding, and that scared Miasra more than any weapon. "You'll surrender?" Miasra asked. "No," Vika whispered. "We'll unwrite ourselves." I didn't know what she meant at first. Then I saw her opening her chest, not physically, but narratively. She began extracting herself from the story, one layer at a time. Every memory, every scene, every coded identity. She was becoming forgettable, but in doing so, she was performing the one act Miasra couldn't counter, voluntary erasure. If she chose to vanish from the script, not killed, not deleted, but willingly removed, it created an anomaly that even Miasra couldn't trace. Because you can't edit. "What doesn't exist? No," I said, stepping forward. "If you go, I go." Vika looked at me, and for the first time since the beginning she cried, not because she was sad, but because she remembered everything, and was about to choose to. "Forget, thin," she whispered. "Don't. Someone has to remember." "No. We were never meant to survive the ending," she said. Then she kissed me again, not like a lover, like a goodbye. And she shattered into particles of light and language, unwritten, undone, gone. And Miasra? She screamed, because in that instant, a hole formed in the narrative, an absence she couldn't patch, and I stood in it, alone, but free. The world blinked. Izero collapsed. Reality folded into something simpler. I stood on a barren hill, holding nothing but memory. No one remembered her. No one remembered dragons, or the clutch, or the blood-coded love that rewrote galaxies. But I did. Because I chose not to forget, and in that choice, I became something else. Not a god, not a weapon, not even a man. I became a beginning. I live now as a story seed, drifting between worlds. Sometimes a name, sometimes a whisper in the minds of rebels or lovers or fools who dare to defy their fates. Sometimes I see her face in the rain, in digital mirrors, in the way stars flicker unexpectedly. Vika, she doesn't know me anymore, but maybe she doesn't need to, because what we had was real, even if it didn't last, and sometimes that's enough. Even endings need ghosts, and I am hers forever.